Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be going over the erroneous lie of Saint Maurice. So now you might be asking to yourself, what does he mean when he says the erroneous lie of Saint Maurice? So brothers and sisters, direct your attention to the images that you see in the background. What you are looking at are the nobility in Europe. These are images of lords, kings, dukes, knights, electors, princes, what have you, that they have purposely identified as Saint Maurice because they don't want you to know that people like this that are on your screen were actually the rulers in Europe, and in this case, specifically around Germany. Brothers, Saint Maurice is the false identity they give to all of these portraits and statues of noble looking black men like this. Now before we continue, let's get some formalities out of the way. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, make sure you like the video and leave a comment because all of that helps the video get pushed out. Let's continue. So now brothers and sisters, here's another collage of images portraying the nobility in Europe that they have purposely identified as Saint Maurice. Brothers and sisters, none of these portraits and statues of noble looking black men in Europe are depicting Saint Maurice. One more time, Saint Maurice is a lie. It's a false identity that they give to portraits and statues of noble looking black men to obfuscate the fact that you're looking at the nobility in Europe. So with that being said, can we correctly identify some of these portraits and statues of these noble looking so-called black men? Okay, so now brothers and sisters, before we get to the portraits, images and statues, we're first going to get a brief understanding of who Saint Maurice was and his legend for those of you who don't know. Now I'm not going to read this whole thing, I'm just going to read the first 4 paragraphs, like I said, just to get that brief understanding for those of you who are not familiar with Saint Maurice. So Saint Maurice was an Egyptian military leader who headed the legendary Theban Legion of Rome in the 3rd century. So we're just going to quickly highlight the Theban Legion to see what this was. So the Theban Legion figures in Christian hagiography as a Roman legion from Egypt, 6,666 men, consisting of Christian soldiers who were martyred together in 286. According to the hagiographies of Maurice, the chief among the legion saints, their feast day is held on the 22nd of September. So basically, Saint Maurice was the head of this group. So let's go back. So, and is one of the favorite and most widely venerated saints of that martyred group. He is the patron saint of several professions, locales, and kingdoms. So his early life, according to the hagiographical material, Maurice was an Egyptian born in AD 250 in Thebes, an ancient city in Upper Egypt that had been the capital of the new kingdom of Egypt. He was brought up in the region of Thebes. So his career. Maurice became a soldier in the Roman army. He rose through the ranks until he became the commander of the Theban Legion, thus leading approximately 1,000 men. He was an acknowledged Christian at the time when early Christianity was considered to be a threat to the Roman Empire. The legion, entirely composed of Christians, had been called from Thebes in Egypt to Gaul to assist Emperor Maximian in defeating a revolt by the Bagaudae, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Bagaudae, like I said, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Theban Legion was dispatched with orders to clear the Great Saint Bernard's Pass across the Alps before going into battle. They were instructed to offer sacrifices to pagan gods and pay homage to the emperor. Maurice pledged his men's military allegiance to Rome. He stated that service to God superseded all else. He said that to engage in wanton slaughter was inconceivable to Christian soldiers. He and his men refused to worship Roman deities. So his martyrdom. When Maximian ordered them to murder local Christians, they refused. Ordering the unit to be punished, Maximian had every 10th soldier killed. 1 second. So let me read that again. So Maximian had every 10th soldier killed, a military punishment known as decimation. More orders followed. The men refused compliance and encouraged by Maurice, and a second decimation was ordered. In response to the Theban Christians' refusal to attack fellow Christians, Maximian ordered all remaining members of the legion to be executed. The place in Switzerland where this occurred, known as Agnum, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is now Saint Maurice, Switzerland, site of the Abbey of Saint Maurice. So reads the earliest account of their martyrdom, contained in the public letter which Bishop Eucharius of Lyon addressed to his fellow bishop Salvius. Alternative versions have the legion refusing Maximian's orders only after discovering innocent Christians had inhabited a town they had just destroyed, or that the emperor had them executed when they refused to sacrifice to the Roman gods. So, brothers and sisters, that's just a brief understanding of Saint Maurice. Now, if you do decide to do your own research on Saint Maurice, there are going to be conflicting reports on if Saint Maurice was a real person or not. You know, if he was a real person, if it was based off a real person, but his story is embellished, if it's like a half-truth, some of it's true, some of it's not, what have you. Brothers and sisters, it does not matter for the context of this video if Saint Maurice was a real person or not, or if it's based off a real person. The main issue is that they take the name and identity, like I mentioned, of this Saint Maurice, and they attach it to all the noble looking black men spread across Europe. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT, was Saint Maurice a real person? Thus reads, Saint Maurice is traditionally considered a real historical figure, but there is debate among scholars about the accuracy of the details surrounding his life and martyrdom. So what tradition says? So Saint Maurice was a Roman soldier of Egyptian origin, believed to have lived in the 3rd century AD. He was the leader of the Theban Legion, a Christian military unit said to be composed entirely of Egyptian Christians from the city of Thebes. According to the legend, the Theban Legion was sent to Gaul to suppress a rebellion. When the Emperor Maximian ordered them to persecute Christians, they refused. As punishment for their disobedience, the entire legion, some say up to 6,000 soldiers, were executed near Agnum, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, around 287 AD. So what historians say? There is no contemporary Roman record of Maurice or the mass martyrdom of the Theban Legion. The story was first written down around 450 AD by Eucharius of Lyon, over 150 years after the supposed events. The sheer scale of the massacre, 6,600 men, is considered highly unlikely by modern historians. Many scholars believe that Maurice and the Theban Legion are partially legendary, possibly based on real Christian soldiers who were martyred, but whose story was greatly embellished over time. So cultural impact. Whether or not he was historical in the strictest sense, Maurice became one of the most venerated saints in medieval Europe. He was especially important in the Holy Roman Empire, where he was seen as a patron of soldiers and emperors. He is often depicted as a black African saint, especially in medieval European art from the 12th century onward. Conclusion: Saint Maurice may have been based on a real person or group, but the details of his life are likely legendary or symbolic. His story served religious and political purposes in medieval Christian Europe. So one more time, brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter if Saint Maurice was a real person or not. It doesn't matter if it's based off a real person, what have you, or his legend. Point being is this, for the context of this video, they take this legend, this story here of Saint Maurice, and they use it as a scapegoat for all the noble looking portraits and statues of black men in Europe. One more time, brothers, those statues of noble looking black men in Europe are not Saint Maurice. Saint Maurice is the scapegoat. Saint Maurice is the false identity. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, let's take a look at some of the portraits and statues, what have you, of alleged Saint Maurice, and let's see if we can identify who is actually in these portraits and these statues. Okay, so now, brothers and sisters, starting off with this portrait here, as we can see from this portrait, we can see the noble looking so-called black man. Now let's zoom in. As we can see, this is a dark-skinned brother here. We see him with the golden hoop earring. We see him in a full suit of armor embroidered with gold. We see him with the sword with the golden hilt. As I said, this brother looks prestigious, he looks royal, he looks regal. Now, of course, brothers, they have falsely dubbed this portrait here Saint Maurice. We all know this is not Saint Maurice. So the question is, who is this man in this portrait? Ladies and gentlemen, I present you the real image, the real portrait of none other than Maurice, not to be confused with Saint Maurice. Yes, his name was Maurice. Maurice, Duke and Elector of Saxony. I'm going to say that again. This is the real portrait of Maurice, Duke and the Elector of Saxony. So now, brothers, what is Elector of Saxony? So an Elector of Saxony was the hereditary ruler of the Electorate of Saxony, a state of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, I'm putting emphasis on the Holy Roman Empire because, like I've mentioned, brothers, the Holy Roman Empire in and of itself was started and ruled over by so-called black people. Let's read on. Who held the powerful and vital privilege of casting a vote in the election of the Holy Roman Emperor. The electorate, first confirmed by the Golden Bull of 1356, existed from the 14th century until the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire in 1806. So Imperial Elector, the Elector of Saxony, was one of the high-ranking German princes. I'm putting emphasis on the word princes because, like I mentioned, brothers, the princes, the kings, the lords, the dukes, the emperors at this time were so-called black men. Let's read on. who participated in the election of the Holy Roman Emperor, a critical role in the structure of the empire. So Maurice, Elector of Saxony. Now brothers, before we read this little blurb here, look at the fake versions of him. They got him in the right hand corner. Now brothers, you see these whitenized images? These are the images that you're going to see on the showroom floor, unlike museums or in the front of museums, or if they decide to make a documentary on Maurice, these are the fake whitewashed versions that they're going to show you. Brothers, all of these are fake. Let's go back to the real one. One more time. This is the real portrait of Maurice, Duke and Elector of Saxony. But these are the versions that they're going to show you in the mainstream. But let's read on. So Maurice, Elector of Saxony, was a German prince of the Albertine branch of the Wettin dynasty, who initially supported Emperor Charles V. Now I'm emphasizing Charles V because later on, shortly, we're going to take a look at what Holy Roman Emperor Charles V actually looked like. Now, for those of you who have been on my channel for a while, we already know what Holy Roman Emperor Charles V actually looks like, but I'm going to show it again for those of you who don't know. So Emperor Charles V, but later turned against him, aligning with France and the Protestant princes to force the peace of the Augsburg and secure the Protestant faith. Known for his strategic and often deceptive diplomacy, Maurice gained extensive lands and the electoral dignity for his branch of the family. He died in battle in 1553, and his brother Augustus succeeded him as elector. Now, of course, brothers, if Maurice was a so-called black man, by deductive logic and reasoning, that means his brother Augustus was also a so-called black man. And one more time, brothers and sisters, the electors of Saxony were so-called black men. Let's go back to the portrait. One more time, this is Maurice, the real portrait of Maurice, Elector of Saxony, not Saint Maurice. Okay, so now we're on the Instagram page, Unfiltered History 144. Now shout outs to this brother. I remember using an image that he produced of, I think it was Joan Nomad, being escorted by wild women, which I used when I touched on the wild man. This brother has also used clips from my videos on his Instagram page. But this brother came with references of the description of Maurice, Elector of Saxony, as we're going to read. So his name alone, Maurice, deriving from the Latin word moros, which signifies one of a dark, black, swarthy complexion, bearing more credence to Maurice's physical appearance, as noted by his contemporaries. So we're going to zoom in here. So Maurice, the Elector of Saxony, an historical romance by Catherine, published 1844. Marauding expeditions. He was a bold and fearless man, as reckless of bad deeds as of danger. His person was a faithful index to his character. His head was large and amply supplied with black, shaggy hair. Now we look at the portrait of Maurice, Elector of Saxony. As you can see, brothers, what do we see? His black, shaggy hair, as was described. Let's read on. So with his black, shaggy hair, which matched his swarthy visage, brothers, which matched his swarthy visage. Let's look at his visage. As we can see, brothers, dark complected, just like he was described. So now, brothers, we go here to the online etymology of the term swarthy for those of you who are new. So the term swarthy, dark colored, tawny, especially in reference to skin. One more time, especially in reference to skin. 1580s, an unexplained alteration of swarthy from swart, related swarthiness. Jump down. So entries linking to swarthy. Swart, Old English swart or sweat, black, being of a dark hue. One more time, being of a dark hue. In reference to night, clouds, also figurative, wicked, infamous, from Proto-Germanic swarta, from Old Frisian, Old Saxon, and Middle Dutch swart, Dutch swart, Old Norse swart, German swartz, Gothic swartz, dark coloured, black. So we jump down. The native Germanic word surviving in the continental languages but displaced in English by black. Also in Old English in reference to skin colour of persons. One more time, brothers, the term swarthy was in reference to a so-called black person. Now, as I've mentioned, anytime the term swarthy comes up in past videos, brothers, they're going to tell you, especially today, that the term swarthy is mainly in reference to a tanned Caucasian or a Caucasian who can tan, or like a modern day Mediterranean, or like a Caucasian, a dark Caucasian from Spain. Because what they've done, they've taken words used to describe the various complexions of black people and they've attached it to themselves to claim history. As I've mentioned, brothers, in past videos, words like swarthy, tawny, dusky, copper-colored, sanguine, ruddy, brunette, all of these were in references to the various complexions of so-called black people. But when you hear all of those words today, they're going to tell you it's in reference to Caucasians with a tan. Now, I just want to see what ruddy people actually look like, since I mentioned ruddy. Okay, so now, brothers, when it comes to the term ruddy or sanguine, which can be interchangeable with each other, they're going to tell you that the term ruddy is in reference to like a white person with red rosy cheeks and ginger hair. But this is what the term ruddy means in reference to so-called black people, and I'm going to show you what some so-called ruddy black people look like. So first off, as you can see this woman here, this is what we would describe as a ruddy complexion. And as you can see, basically, brothers, the term ruddy in reference to black people is like a so-called black person, light-skinned or dark-skinned, with a reddish hue, or like a reddish tone to them, as we can see from this woman here. So let's get some more. As we can see here, another woman here, so-called black woman, also can be described as ruddy or sanguine. As you can see, brother, a darker so-called black woman here, also with a reddish hue. Like I said, brothers, ruddy can be light-skinned or dark-skinned. As you can see, brother, she has that reddish tone, reddish hue to her. Another so-called black woman also can be described as ruddy. Of course, these two boys here with that reddish tone to them, ruddy complexion. Here's a collage of so-called black women here who will be described as ruddy. Or today they will be described as black ginger. Here is a family of so-called black ruddy people. Here's another so-called black woman with that reddish tone to her, especially to her hair. Now, for those of you elders that may be my channel, you might know who this is. So now, brothers, this is an actor comedian known as Red Fox. Now, his name is John Elroy Sanford, and he's famously known for the sitcom Sanford and Son. Now, his nickname was Red Fox. Now, there's a reason for that. As we can see, this brother has a light red tone to him. So I typed in John Elroy Sanford. Why was he called Red Fox? Red Fox, born John Elroy Sanford, stand-up comedian and actor, was best known for his starring role in Sanford and Son. He was called Red because of his reddish hair and complexion. One more time, brothers, this is a ruddy complexion. But when you hear the term ruddy today, they're going to tell you it's a white person with red rosy cheeks and ginger hair. But one more time, brothers and sisters, it's very important to know swarthy, tawny, dusky, copper-colored, sanguine, ruddy, brunette, all were in references to the various complexions of so-called black people. And it's very important to know this because for those of you brothers and sisters who decide to do your own research on the physical descriptions of a lot of the monarchs during the medieval time period, they're going to be described as such, especially when it comes to the term swarthy. And if you don't know how these were in references to the complexions of so-called black people, then you would read these descriptions and it will go right over your head. So now this is a coin showcasing Duke and Elector Maurice of Saxony. And if we zoom in here, brothers, there's no getting around this. If I was to ask you, what do you see? You're going to say it's a so-called black man. And that's not to say that, of course, all so-called black people have, the fuller lips or the wider noses. But come on, man. There's no getting around this, brothers and sisters. So now I asked ChatGPT, what does the words on this coin translate to? As thus reads, the coin you provided shows a 1547 silver thaler from the Elector Maurice of Saxony, minted in Annaberg, part of the Holy Roman Empire. One more time, brothers and sisters, like I keep stating, the Holy Roman Empire was started, ruled over and presided over so-called black people. The Holy Roman Emperors, the dukes, the princes, the electors were so-called black men. Let's read on. It's a beautiful example of Renaissance coinage, both artistically and historically significant. So inscription on the coin, Latin text around the edge. So Marcarius, DG, DVX Saxo Roma Imperii Elector. I know I completely butchered that, but whatever. So this can be translated into English as Maurice, by the grace of God, Duke of Saxony, Elector of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, brothers and sisters, there's no getting around this. Let's go back to it. So one more time, Maurice, Duke and Elector of Saxony on coinage. So now let's get them side by side. So one more time, brothers and sisters, to the left is Maurice, Duke and Elector of Saxony on a portrait, oil painting, what have you. And to the right is Maurice, Duke and Elector and Elector of Saxony on coinage. So one more time, brothers and sisters, I'm going to say a lot in this video, in this series. This is not Saint Maurice. Okay? It's not Saint Maurice. But I'm just going to leave it there for now, brothers and sisters. And by no means am I done with this series. You know, like I mentioned, I'm still going to showcase Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Most of you already knows what he looks like because I've showed it in past videos. And I'm going to show you more, like I mentioned, that the Holy Roman Empire was presided over by so-called black people. I'm going to show you some more Holy Roman Emperors, Princes, Dukes, Electors, what have you, on coinage. Most likely in part 2. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it there for now, brothers and sisters. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully, that was an edifying lesson for you, brothers and sisters. Now, for those of you who wish to financially support me and this channel, you can support me via YouTube memberships, PayPal, or Patreon. With that being said, giving all praises to the Most High Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, deuces.